Greetings, this is Vane and welcome back to Let's Play the Elder Scrolls Arena. Okay. So, yes, we are going to be coming back down here. And then we're going to wander around into here to finish off this bit of the level. So I think that's the plan that we're going with. Not worrying too much about anything at the moment, simply because it seems we might be a tad overpowered for this. What with my ebony katana. But of course, that means nothing when they start throwing away golems at you, I mean. I mean, I suppose you could say that I mean, the balance of this game seems to be a bit off. But then, that was often the nature of open worldy games. And D&D. Basically, if you were unlucky enough to get a high level counter in an area that you weren't supposed to be in, or you'd accidentally wandered into, before you lies a small arena surrounded by water. Something glitters on the stones of one island. Okay, let's have a look. I'll have a wander around and see, but yeah, that'd be the key, I'd imagine. But yeah, I mean, for D&D, for example, the dungeon was your basic crawl, so you kind of had some structure. You knew things were going to get tougher if you went down in deeper into the level, for example. But when you got to expert, which was pretty much levels 4 to 14 for D&D at the time, it became more of a hex crawl, a wilderness exploration, which was quite good. But quite often, if you were having random encounters, they would not be scaled to level at all. But then the belief was by then you'd either be smart enough to know when to run away, or you'd be able to take on quite a few challenges. Even in addition, the dungeons themselves became more challenging. But for the most part, because that aspect of the game was designed to be kind of more wilderness orientated, it was much more open and free-form, and you didn't necessarily have the structures defending you that you would get in a dungeon. For example, in the early low-level dungeons, pretty much your choices are defined by the passages and the doors of the dungeon. Looks like a gold key there. You have found a gold key. Yes, I have. I ain't afraid of no spiders. And of course, I've got my endless piles of loot here. Oh, yeah, okay. That wasn't too bad. Now we can we know where we're going. We've got to get back to here, so there's a number of ways we can do that. So it's not a big deal. We just walk around the outside, I think. Wouldn't mind healing a bit though. Yeah. I think in a way, that kind of open wilderness thing has been kind of nicely implemented. But you still got to deal with the fact that, and obviously it seems to be, from what I can gather, it's the higher level you are, the more higher you don't get separate tables. It just adds stuff to the end of the table. So yeah, sometimes you might get a few low your level creatures, and sometimes you might get higher level creatures, and the encounters themselves are then kind of scaled up as needed. So as you can see, sometimes we get like might be 2-3 orcs, a couple of trolls going at once if you're high enough level, that sort of thing. I mean, but in most cases, if you're able to take on one, then it's normally not a problem to take on slightly more than one. Especially if you can get somewhere defensible. It's only when it's kind of iffy if you can only take on one that they become a bit of a challenge. See a door with a golden lock. Yes, we do. I think it's time for us to go through said door. open the door with a gold key. Okay, where are we here? This is interesting. Let's see what I can find out by scouting the edges of the room with my my automatically mapping ears. Okay. This looks like it's going to be a huge underground maze with possibility of rooms above. So yeah, let's start here then. See where these tunnels take us. Oh, groovy. So what was at the end of that maze then? Is it just you get there and it stops as a dead end, or? Yeah, okay. Just in case you weren't paying attention. Fair enough. Okay, now that's nice. Some minotaurs coming in here, that's not bad. Yeah, this is totally going to be a minotaur maze. See that happening. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, if I can keep heading south, that'd be great. And for everything else, well, there's mapping. And we've got there, so yeah. We'll get there, and now we want west, probably. Try and... I mean, once you know how big a dungeon is, it's a lot easier to just kind of fill in the space than... It gets a bit harder if you've got like an infinitely expanding map. So, a bit like trying to find the edges on a map of Factorio. It's never going to happen. Or finding the edges in the wilderness. from a city, you know, I mean... And to me, it doesn't really matter if I end up in a dead end. It's when you kind of get interior loops and you're not got a map and you kind of find yourself going around in circles. That's when it becomes interesting. I mean, I think it's safe to say that without a map, Arena would be a very much more difficult game. I want to check something. Okay. Fair enough. I mean, it's quite often it's the lack of having a map in the game that provides quite a bit of a challenge for some of the earlier games. For example, trying to map out heroes and might and magic for not heroes, trying to map out might and magic. A lot of the abilities were basically to know where you are so that you could map better, because that was quite often the solution to the problems with the maps. And I find that walkthroughs where you get maps kind of detract from the game, because suddenly you realise that once you know where everything is, I mean, how relatively short the game can be because you're not exploring and mapping. Similar sort of thing with games like I Have the Beholder and that sort of thing. I mean, the inclusion of the maps were great, but it kind of meant that mazes kind of lost their luster. It'd be annoying slow, but basically annoying breaks. But they weren't kind of like necessarily full proper puzzles in the way that they were with games like Might and Magic. I mean, I wouldn't mind trying to play Might and Magic at some point as a Let's Play. The only issue that I have is because mapping is such an integral part, and I'm not quite sure how the best way to represent that for the viewer. Because for speed, graph paper and pencil is normally quite good. Probably the easiest, but that's not really going to show up well unless I kind of scan in the maps. And I'm not particularly sure that I want to have a like have DOSBox open in one window and then kind of have my mapping software in another one, or constantly tab between windows. So I'll have to see how that goes, what I'm thinking for that. Because I mean, that's an interest. Even the originals, like it is an interesting game. Basically, you start in a town, which is a dungeon, because everything's built on map grids. So you could kind of spend some time leveling up, exploring the secrets of the initial starting town. You'd eventually find what you were supposed to be doing and an early quest in a dungeon beneath the town, which itself was another map. Then it would be like, okay, you're out in the wilderness, and it's like, well, do you know whereabouts the town is in the wilderness? No. So having a world that's basically divided into, I think it's 4x5 or 5x4 sets of, it's 5x4 sets, 5x4 grids of, I think that the grids themselves are like 16 squares each. So you kind of not knowing where you were, you kind of either had to just kind of put it in the middle and hope that you could go 16 spaces each way, or kind of use some kind of spells. There were techniques so you'd know where you were. And outdoor mapping was interesting because for most indoor movement, the walls, you could tell what you could go through and what you couldn't go through, because you couldn't really go through walls unless there was a secret door there. You didn't have to find them, you just walk through the wall. But I mean, it's a secret door, what do you expect, you know? Kind of like how you might have seen if you've been watching the My Mordor Depths of Daedonal Let's Play, where you just kind of, it's a secret door in a dungeon. You find it by going through the wall, trying to go through the wall, and if you didn't, you couldn't go that way, and if you did, well, you found the door. Whereas for the wilderness, it was a little bit more complicated than that, because you'd have things, rather than trees and stuff taking up spaces, trees and hills and fields and stuff would all be, there'd all be walls, but you could walk through some of those walls. So in a way, all they really did was impact your... A dense forest wasn't so much a maze as it was that in the terms of multiple twisty paths everywhere and you kind of only go certain ways. It's more a case of, well, you could go pretty much in most directions. It's just that the foliage would block what you could see in some directions. So you didn't necessarily know what you could get through and what you couldn't. Until you actively mapped it out. Which again kind of made mapping a bit more interesting and complicated, because you had a lot of terrains and as well, and I mean, you did kind of get that sense of exploring a world even within the simple 3D confines of a grid-based overworld system, you know. Compare that to, say, Ultima games at the time, where it was pretty much only dungeons, and even then I think it's a lot of the... I think Ultima ultimately became a top-down adventure series for a long part. Because it was... No, I might be wrong. So... I know that the original Ultima, because I've done a Let's Play of that was top-down, but the dungeons themselves, which you didn't have to go in, none of the dungeons were actually important, per se. It was more... They were there for experience, if you could call it experience, and treasure and stuff, and they were basic wireframe dungeons. In fact, they were kind of see-through wireframe dungeons in many cases. Unlike, they say, the textured 3D dungeons that we've got here. Okay, even though I know that's a dead end, I will explore that bit in there just to make sure. There might be some loot in there or something. Unlikely, but... And then we've done what was this, basically a Minotaur maze by the looks of it. Which is quite cool. The hell are you supposed to be? A barbarian? First rule of dungeoneering: if it's in a dungeon, unless it cries for help or mercy, you're gonna kill it. That's what it's there for. Okay. So let's have a look for a second. What have we got? We got... Well, there's a bit more out there. Because we're kind of in this southwest corner. I don't know. I mean... So what I'll probably do is come out and kind of explore around. Kind of that way. But that will be for next episode, because what I'm going to do is see if I can rest. And then I will call it an episode. There we go. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to call it an episode here. So yeah. This has been Vane doing a Let's Play The Elder Scrolls Arena. If you like what you're seeing here, be sure to like, subscribe, share and comment. Please consider sponsoring me on Patreon. And until next time, goodbye.